Welcome to Redskins Draft Central, presented by 7-Eleven, the second of four such shows getting you set for the 2020 NFL Draft, which kicks off on April the 23rd. I'm Larry Michael, and it's great to have on the show again the mouth of the South, Fred Smoot. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you, Larry?
I'm hanging in. And from Redskins.com, we've got Kyle Stackpole. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. And coming up in a week, a little less than a week, it'll be the start of the draft, and the Redskins have that second pick. We've talked about it. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. But I want to go into the history of the first round for the Washington Redskins, going all the way back to some of the all-time greats to ever wear the burgundy and gold, Hall of Famers. And Fred, hey, maybe the best ever, Sammy Baugh. He was a first-round pick along with Charlie Taylor, Art Monk. What a great history.
Well, you know, for the kids out there that don't know who we're talking about when we're talking about slinging Sammy Baugh and Charlie Taylor, Put it like this. It started the team in the right direction when you get guys like that. First of all, you have to get a good quarterback. You can do nothing without a great quarterback. And when you want to talk about one hell of a pick, Sammy Baugh was that pick.
He was unbelievable. And Kyle, you know, you get into some of the more contemporary. The Redskins in 2000 had two first-round picks. I mean, LeVar Arrington and Chris Samuels, two guys that Fred played with. I mean, that was a heck of a first-round draft that year.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at the top five picks since 2000, I think we've had 6 of them, and combined they've had 21 Pro Bowls between them. So the Redskins have the number 2 pick this year, and history shows that picks in the top 5 for the Redskins the past 2 decades have been really good. So I expect that to keep up this year.
Larry Michael, are you forgetting about Champ Bailey? Why don't nobody attach Champ Bailey to the Redskins? I just don't know why. He was our guy. Yes, we traded him away, but he's a Hall of Famer that we drafted, and my road dog.
Yeah, he was a great guy, man. Still is a great guy. He just got in the Hall of Fame. But I want to ask you about 2004, Fred Smoot, when Joe Gibbs and the Redskins drafted Sean Taylor with the first round. Joe Gibbs came in there. What was that whole thing like when Sean got drafted? And I know Portis had really promoted Sean Taylor internally, so you got to look at this guy. And he was a legendary college player, Sean was. So go back to that year, and how did that feel to the team at the time?
It felt great. Like you said, Clinton wants everybody from Miami drafted every year, but this one he hit on the head. Like, I remember us all sitting down and talking. It was Coach Gibbs, it was Dan, CP, and we were just talking about draft picks and stuff, and he was talking about Sean, and I had already talked to Ed Reed months before that, and Ed said it's a safety in Miami right now that's better than me. And I was like, come on, Ed, stop all that. He's like, no, he's better than me, he's bigger than me, he's faster than me, and I'm telling you, if you got a chance to get this guy, you should get him. And we started bringing it up around Redskin Park. And you know Greg Williams, he's a defensive mastermind. He couldn't wait to get Sean and incorporate him in the defense. So I think it was a group thing when it came to drafting Sean. It was the first time I had seen that.
Hey, let me ask you this. What was the first time you met Sean after he was drafted, and what was your first impression of him?
I met him the next day after you fly him up and stuff like that. He came in, of course, he did his thing at FedEx Field, and then he came to Redskin Park, and I walked up on him, and first thing came to my mind, he's huge. All right, I seen him standing up next to LeVar Arrington, and you couldn't tell who was who. A lot of people don't understand when Sean came in as a rookie, he was 245 pounds. He was huge.
And Kyle, I want to ask you about one of the guys even more contemporary, Ryan Kerrigan. He was drafted out of Purdue, and not a lot of people really thought that was going to happen, but what a great career he's had. And talk about expectations. He had high expectations of himself. I believe he's exceeded expectations. What a great career he's had.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's just been the example of what a pro's pro, of what a player should do, really a model for the Washington Redskins. Obviously a perennial Pro Bowler, number 2 in sacks for the Redskins in franchise history. So he was a guy that the Redskins got in the middle of the first round, and he's been everything they could have hoped for and more for this team.
All right, we're going to hear from the playmaker Deangelo Hall. Switching gears now to what is happening in a week. Redskins on the clock with that second overall pick. A lot of people think it's a foregone conclusion. Fred, we're going to hear D. Hall, and we're going to get your reaction. Here's the playmaker, Deangelo Hall. His thoughts on that number 2 overall pick coming up on Thursday, the 23rd of April. Do you have any thoughts on what might or might not happen coming up in a couple weeks on Thursday night. Everybody seems to think it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
You are not part of the organization, so you could say whatever your speculation might be. What do you think?
Well, it kind of is a foregone conclusion. You kind of feel like the Redskins have to take, Chase Young. If you look at all the speculation we've already talked about acquiring a 5th round trade or using a 5th round draft pick for Kyle Allen, and just look at the speculation you have with that and Dwayne Haskins. So you kind of think that they're not going the quarterback route. I have heard a little bit of whispers about possibly a team trading up. They're going to have to give up a whole lot to do that. But the Redskins were entertaining that early on. It feels like they're not doing so much of entertaining that anymore. They're probably going to stay pat. I think a lot of GMs, when you get in this situation, it's not necessarily about the guy you're either, it's not necessarily about what you can get for that guy. It's almost like you're dating a girl and, you pick the other one instead of that one. And then you're kind of tied to that girl for the rest of your career. Or for the rest of your life. And so I think with this draft pick, I think the Redskins are probably going to stay where they're at because, no one wants to be that organization that pass up on a guy like Chase Young and he ends up being, a Hall of Fame caliber football player. When you play that outside linebacker pass rush position, is not a lot of intricacies in the details. At quarterback, it's so many little intricacies that you got to get right to be a great quarterback. It's so many kind of at corner or, offensive lineman, everything kind of has to align. To be a good pass rusher, you got to be talented, but you got to have a motor and you got to have some moves and some, and some dog, as we say. And we know for a fact that when we've seen the other list of pedigree of guys out of Ohio State and other top pass rushers, we know Chase Young has all those intangibilities. And so, I think he's the guy that a lot of people want the Redskins to take. I think he's probably the can't miss pick right now. So I think the Redskins will stay packed at that position. And, you talked about Kyle Allen facing this defensive front. You add a guy like Chase Young to this defensive front, man.
Yeah.
It's going to rival what the 49ers did, I think, last year, and just having that defensive front impose their will on other teams and having the back end just be able to just relax and just, not let the deep ball beat them because that front's going to get home.
It'd be hard to get a deep ball with that kind of pass rush. Let me ask you this, since you brought up the back end, and we know the Redskins dived into free agency, got a Hokie back, a guy you know very well. Matter of fact, a lot of DMV players, Sean Davis, also Darby, local kid. What are your thoughts on those guys coming on board for the secondary?
Hey, look, I've always liked Darby. I met him years ago when he was just coming out of Florida State. And so, have a really good relationship with him. And, injuries hurt him in Philly. This was a kid who had all the potential in the world. When you watch him play, I think he's going to be a great addition. You talked about Kendall Fuller. Kendall was a guy, I helped kind of just, bring
Say it.
I'm smiling just, because I was so excited for him when he got the opportunity to go to Kansas City and play and be a starter. And, I was texting him through the course of his career there and, playing in the Super Bowl and having a chance to win one. And now coming back home, a place I know he wanted to never leave. I'm just so happy for him. And, I know the Redskins organization are going to get some great guys in that secondary, and I know they're going to work. That was one thing I said about Kendall before that game, man, him and Breland. I knew both those guys were going to work in that Super Bowl game, and they did work. They got a win. They got some rings, and I'm just so proud of them dudes. But I'm happy to welcome Kendall back to the DMV.
I know you are. Final thing for Deangelo Hall. Talked about the first round. What about the rest of the draft? What would constitute a good draft for the Redskins, in your opinion, when the dust settles and they've gone through the 7th round? What are some of the things you think you'd like to see them pick up?
You got to fill needs. When you talk about, this Washington Redskins football team, I heard Thomas Davis say how talented he thought this team was. And, he's not lying. This football team is very talented. You just have to keep guys healthy. You have to get some depth at some crucial positions. It's really sticking with the plan. This front office has kind of been acquiring some talent now for a couple of years. And so, I think having Coach Rivera come in and really put his stamp on the kind of football team he wants to have, this draft is going to be a big indicator in how they're going to play football games and how they're going to win football games. Is it going to be, running the football and having a really good run game, taking your shots downfield, dominant defense, which is what is kind of looking like. You got to get some quality backups in some of those positions because, as you and I know, Larry, we've been a part of some really good teams that one injury is like, oh man, it's kind of like it lets all the air out the sails. And so this team needs to be a football team that's constructed to where if they do have a guy go down or two guys go down, that you have some quality backups who can step in there and still make plays, and that level isn't dropped off too much. And so I want to see another speed guy out there to help Terry out. I want to see another tight end come in here, just add some depth. Anytime you lose, guys like Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis, what they've done for this team and in this league, you gotta bring in some quality playmakers at that position. The secondary, you always need depth because those are the guys who are probably going to, help be the core foundation players to your special teams. And so, you just got to get guys who want to come in here and work. And I know Coach Rivera is going to identify the kind of guys who are going to come in here and put the kind of work in and have the mindset that he wants to, push out towards the players in that locker room.
Fred, you've mentioned on this show and on some previous occasions we've been together to how if it's Chase Young, he's going to free up the defense. I'd like for you to expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by that? Maybe get into some of the X's and O's. Who are some of the players this might benefit other than getting a great player, number 2 overall?
Basically, what people have to understand, like if you can go back to that San Francisco 49ers draft pick when they drafted Bosa, they had already previously drafted Buckner and the rest of those first rounders on that defensive line. None of those guys could attract the attention that Bosa attracts. And when you get a guy that must be double teamed, he leaves everybody else to run. Payne, Jonathan Allen, Matt Ioannidis, everybody has one-on-ones, and they're going to beat one-on-ones consistently. That's what I mean when Chase Young is going to unlock the defense. They're going to have to pay so much attention to him on offense that they're going to forget about the other stars on the defense. Buckner just got paid because of Bosa. Like 10 sacks coming into this year, at the end of this year, and it had everything to do with the fact that if it's one guy over there, if it's an alpha dog over there, somebody that's totally different than everybody else that can wreck my game plan, we have to pay more attention to him. And I think that's what Chase Young is going to bring for this team. I've talked to a lot of ex-Ohio State guys, and they feel like he's better than the Bosa brothers. I think they're saying everything in itself. At number 2, we must take number 2. Chase Young, can't wait till you come home, brother.
Well, there's some other positions the Redskins will consider after that first-round pick. We'll talk about that after this. Redskins Draft Central is presented by 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is a proud partner of the Washington Redskins. Don't forget the virtual draft party presented by 7-Eleven, April 25th, Saturday, 6 o'clock. It's going to be great. And brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more in your car insurance. Visit geico.com to see how much you can save. All right, welcome back. Redskins Draft Central, presented by 7-Eleven. Larry Michael, Fred Smoot, and Kyle Stackpole from Redskins.com. And yes, there are some other positions. And Fred, as the DB, I know you scout those wide receivers. And so let's check out the wide receivers. This is a deep bunch, I am told, deep into the 3rd round even. You got a lot of talent at the wide receiver position.
It goes deeper than the 3rd round. I think you can find undrafted free agents in this group. I think you're going to find 5th, 6th, 7th rounders in this group. This could be the best wide receiver class of all time. Yes, I am saying that. The best wide receiver class. I can just go on and name. I can go 20 guys deep with naming guys, but I like Michael Pittman Jr. because when I'm looking for the Redskins, I have a speed guy. I have a couple speed guys. What I need is that tall receiver that I can throw bad passes to all the time, and he comes down with with him. USC, Michael Pittman Jr. is that type of guy. He's that type of guy. Denzel Mims from Baylor, that type of guy. So it's guys that range from Henry Ruggs III that can burn you off the field and guys that can jump ball you off the field. And if I'm the Redskins right now, I'm looking for size and I'm looking for guys with a large catch radius. And when I say catch radius, I mean when they spread their arms, they can literally go 5-6 feet and go catch balls. So I think when you talk about this group, it's too many guys to actually name to pinpoint, but you will have to be a terrible scout to fail at drafting a wide receiver in this draft.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, if the Redskins were going to trade back, obviously that would give them the option to draft someone like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, the really top-end guys. But if they're looking to draft a receiver in the 3rd round, 66th overall, you mentioned Michael Pittman Jr., another big guy, Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame.
Yes.
He's so big that some teams have already talked about maybe moving him to tight end, but he's so athletic and he has so much speed that he could also play on the outside. So, I mean, you said it, there's so many receivers in this draft class and they really can't go wrong. So whether the Redskins want to draft one in the 3rd round or even wait until the 5th or the 7th round, there's going to be someone there that is going to provide some talent going forward.
And Michael Pittman's father obviously knew a little bit about Sean Taylor, Fritzman.
Oh yes, I do know about that. I know that about that personally.
Were you there right at that time when that happened? I know LeVar Arrington kind of spoke for the team at that point. But
yes, I was there. I was there. And don't forget about a guy. He got injured. South Carolina. Braylon Edwards.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a special project. He just reminds me of a couple of old school guys, Marcus Robinson and guys like that I played against and played with. I think he's going to be a special pro. He has that it factor.
Hey, Fred, put yourself in the draft room real quick. You get what you need in round 1. In round 3, the way it sounds, there's a lot of wide receivers in this draft. Do you go wide receiver or do you take an offensive lineman knowing you have a situation that is yet to be resolved over there on the left side? If you're in that room, I guess maybe it's the best player available, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's the best player available, and I'm looking at myself and telling myself, what's the chances of me finding a starting left tackle in the 3rd round? It's not very high. So, but I can find me a starting tight end. I can find me a tight end that can add to this team in the 3rd round. There's a couple of guys out there that can really make some plays that I would consider bringing in here. So I don't think a tight end is going in the 1st round. So I think that's a position that'll be jumbled up there in the 2nd and the 3rd that we can make a run and possibly get a starter. Because in the 3rd, I'm still looking for starters.
All right, let's move on. Linebackers, and you have raved about Isaiah Simmons. I mean, you just have been just all over Isaiah Simmons. So we'll start with you, Fred, then get to Kyle. I mean, he's obviously head and shoulders on top of this list, but obviously going to be gone by the time the Redskins get to the 3rd round.
Yes, he is. He will be long gone, and the Giants are going to do it again. Mark my word. They drafted a freak on offense with Saquon Barkley, and now they're going to do it again on defense with Isaiah Simmons. I don't even know to call him a linebacker. He's a football player. He's a defensive football player. But I got a name for you, and it ain't just because he's from Mississippi State. Big play Willie Gay. All right, remember that name. Willie Gay. He can go sideline to sideline. He's a 4.4 40. He ranked top in college in coverage skills when it comes to linebacker. He's going to be a day 1 starter in this league. Willie Gay is one of those guys that if you draft him, you will have a starter for 12 years.
Oh, wow. I got a couple more names for you. Some guys that are not as good as Simmons, I'll be honest with that, but, could be available in the 3rd and 4th round. You have Anfernee Jennings out of Alabama, a really versatile guy. You have another guy, Logan Wilson, an inside linebacker from Wyoming. And then you have a teammate of Chase Young's in Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. So there's linebackers available throughout this draft. Not sure if the Redskins will focus on one in the 3rd and 4th round just based on what they did in free agency. But like you said, if the best player available is a linebacker, there's definitely a few guys they could scoop up.
And it doesn't matter that he's Mississippi State, huh, Fred? It's just ironic.
It's just ironic. We're putting out quality at Mississippi State right now, not quantity. All right, and that's what I'm telling you. And Willie Gay is that type of guy. And if we're gonna stay on that defensive side of the ball, I would love to bring a safety in too. Small school guy Jeremy Chin is one of those guys. Him or Duggar can fit into this defense instantly.
You know your stuff, man, and you know what? We'll get more from you in the next edition of Redskins Draft Central presented by 7-Eleven. But we got to move on now. And offensive tackle is a position I want to focus on. We obviously know that you got Jerron Christian, who's coming along, young player, hadn't played a lot. You got Morgan Moses, who never misses a down. Guy's got a big heart. But over there on the left side, you've got that opening that's been created by Trent Williams' situation. And maybe we hear something prior to the draft that there is a trade, that the Redskins maybe pick up a pick that will actually, for them, give them the value that they're looking for Trent Williams. It could spill over after the draft. You never know what's going to happen here. But as I hear it, the draft doesn't have a ton of depth, as you said, Fred, of starting tackles. You might only have 4 or 5 tackles who might be worthy of starting this year. So take a look at this list. I mean, the guy from Alabama isn't the biggest guy around, not the tallest, not the biggest, but he's obviously an Alabama pedigree player. What do you think? And is it a fact, there's not that many huge, big name tackles coming out, that this could draw to after the draft before the Redskins address this?
Yeah, when you look at the list, like you said, a lot of these guys are going to be gone before. It's always a run on quarterbacks and it's a run on tackles in the first 25 picks, no matter what. Somebody's going to shock you. And then you got to ask yourself, we want to trade with Cleveland for Trent Williams. What if they take a tackle in the first round? So that's what you got to really worry about in this draft. But I think when you look at this draft, like you said, it's totally not deep. Then you have to wonder, do we bring back a Donald Penn? Do you get Peters from the Eagles? Do you put a veteran right there and you draft a guy in the 5th, 6th round and let him learn behind that veteran? I think that's the way coach is going to go, because one thing I knew about Carolina, they was going to have some offensive linemen, and all of them wasn't going to be big names, but they were going to be tough, and they was going to have a mindset, and they was going to push the power forward. So I think Thomas might be a guy that maybe drops or something, but I don't think we can promise I wish for a guy to be there in the second that's going to be a legit starter in this league from day one.
I totally agree with you, Fred. I mean, you have Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills. There's 4 guys that are really going to go probably in the top 16, and the class is really not deep. So I think the best plan of attack would be to draft a guy like Matt Pert out of UConn, or you have Lucas Niang out of TCU, guys like that in the later rounds that you can plug in a starter, a veteran starter for this year, and have them work behind them and develop so that next year they could be ready to start. So it's not that deep, but there's definitely some depth there, and I think the Redskins will definitely be looking for some tackle depth in the draft this year.
Do you think a guy like Austin Jackson from USC, do you think he could fall into our left if we can find a way to get back in the second round? Do you think Austin Jackson from USC could fall in our left?
Yeah, I really think he can. I mean, I think it depends where in the second round we get that pick, but I think that's something where if we get a pick back and we know we can grab a receiver or a tight end in the 3rd round, it would be worth taking a chance probably on an offensive lineman in the 2nd round just to make sure that's shored up. And even if he doesn't start right away, he'll be in competition and he'll be another guy that is going to compete for that role.
We talked about these trades and how they could be reduced, the number of trades reduced by the virtual trade, by the virtual draft, I should say. So maybe this is going to happen before the draft. Maybe it'll happen after the draft. During the draft, maybe things are going to slow down a little bit, Fred, because, this is new technology. Everybody's in their home. They might want to make their pick and not miss.
Well, most GMs are going to try to get their trades done before draft day. Like, it's either going to happen, like you said, it's going to happen before the draft or it's going to happen after the draft. But what we got going for us is because we all going through the same thing, a lot of these GMs haven't got a chance to look at some of the guys that's already on their rosters. And don't forget the pre-training camp cuts. Don't forget after training camp cuts. It's going to be some veterans out there. So I don't think you have to look at this draft if you're a Redskins and say we have to come out of here with a tackle. It's going to be tackles out there. It's going to be linemen out there. I just think we're going to have to take the veteran route more than the draftee route this year.
Hey, Fred, what are you doing to stay in shape right now that we're quarantined?
I am jogging, and actually, this is how I'm staying in shape. I am walking around the lake, watching my son as I work him to death. So I'm getting mental reps while I work my son to death right now.
All right, appreciate Kyle Stackpole, and folks. We'll be back with you on Monday for the 3rd edition of the Redskins Draft Central Preview Show presented by 7-Eleven. Thanks for watching.